Attention startup leaders. Are you strapped for time but hungry for strategic insights? Introducing Managed Chaos, your go-to podcast for navigating the startup world in less time than your morning commute. Join us as we share expert advice, real-world examples, and actionable strategies to help you scale your business, allocate resources effectively, and achieve visionary results. Tune into Managed Chaos and join a community of like-minded innovators on the path to entrepreneurial success.
Go-to-market is a key function for any business, and it's more than just getting your operations ready for market. Welcome to Managed Chaos Podcast, where we give you the startup business rundown in less time than it takes for you to get to work. I'm Katrina Purcell.
And I'm Rachel Anderson.
And today we are getting back to go-to-market strategies. Now, if you haven't already listened to our first part, you should probably go back and do that. There's definitely going to be some great context for our continued conversation here. But of course, we're definitely going to do our best that you won't get too lost in the process if you want to stick around and you don't want to go back and listen to the first episode. So we've already talked about getting operations in place. There's definitely more than that to go to market. What other things should we be paying attention to, Rachel?
So I like to think of go-to-market strategies, building it, prepping for it, all that kind of stuff outside of the operations as sort of a trifecta between product, sales, and marketing. And so this process, once you've gotten through some of your initial planning stages with operations, and that's going to be market research, deciding what product or feature needs to be added or developed, what that timeline looks like, actually doing the development, all that kind of stuff. That is already in the works or happening. There's at least a 6-month planning process that needs to happen before you press the big green button of go live and make sure that you have certain milestones hit, certain assets created, even internally assets, not even just public facing, and certain milestones hit. And so a thoughtful and I guess I shouldn't say it's well executed if it's less or more than 6 months, but truly like giving yourself time to do it well, it's got to be at least 6 months. So first is looking at this from a product perspective. And in that time, they should really be addressing sort of this go, no go question. Are we going to make it in time for this date that we've decided on, or this month we've decided on, or week, or whatever that looks like for the team? And that's really about the product. Does the product work? Are there bugs that just it's not functioning right? And it doesn't have to be perfect. We talked a little bit about that in our previous episode. There's not a perfection here that we're looking for, but can it reasonably be put to customers? And at this point, for a go-to-market, yes, there are plenty of features and products that exist that go to market in a beta stage or like an alpha stage or whatever, and you sort of build that into your go-to-market strategy. But most of the time when you hit this moment, all of those testing groups are usually part of that pre-planning period. And this go-to-market is general availability. So has product been able to do enough that this can be a paid for product or a significant feature enhancement? So that is the product's responsibility, sort of this go, no go. Then marketing needs to do a lot of work on documentation. And that, like I said, was both internal and external. So things that marketing is looking at in this 6-month period is competitive analysis. Where are the differentiators between your product and your competitors' products? They need to do training. They need to do sales alignment. They need to do messaging. They need to do battle cards. They need to have all kinds of information for the brand, for sales, for product, for customers. I mean, I could keep going. Mm-hmm. Marketing holds a huge responsibility in really making sure that the way we talk about and launch this go-to-market strategy actually implements. And then finally, sales has to be completely ready. And that means not just understanding how to demo and how to use the product, which they do, because they need to look knowledgeable, that they actually know how these things work. But they also have to be able to then speak to the problem the customer's facing, not just the feature that they need. And that's really the difference with saying, hey, we have this feature called speed. It'll be so fast for you, you'll never need to wait more than 2 seconds ever again. Versus we know you're time constrained and that's a problem. So let us give you speed so that you can get your time back, right? Different ways to sell. And that is something that takes sales enablement, like I said, takes marketing, takes practice from the sales team and reinforcement from management. So there's this trifecta of information that really has to happen in that last 6-month period before you go live so you can officially hit that go-to-market.
There's also one element which we didn't talk about on the last podcast, and I'm going to bring up on this one is finance. How are you going to bill for it? Are you billing for it in your, in the tool that you already have that exists? Is there a separate contracting? How are you going to, attribute revenue to that product? Or is it an add-on, and thinking through that? And oftentimes that gets left to the last minute and then is not as strategic as you'd like it to be. So I think that 6-month timeframe is so valuable because it allows all the different teams to kind of come together and think through it. We did talk a little bit on our last podcast really about sales. You focused a little bit more on marketing, but most of the time when we talk to leaders about marketing, it's kind of when things are already ready to go live. Oftentimes it's like, hey, we have this product. What are we doing with it? Can't we just put something up on the website and, hope for the best? So what exactly does marketing do beforehand that kind of helps with this overall go-to-market process?
Yeah. So I know I mentioned some of those things and I'm going to deep dive into a few of those more. But I think, if I'm a leader and I'm thinking about, okay, what are the questions I need to ask to make sure my team's really thinking about it? I would probably recommend 3 key questions that you can pose to your marketing team. And this will influence sales and products. So it's not that marketing solely has the answers, but they'll probably be the one helping guide this. So first is, how are we communicating our unique value proposition to our audience? So what I mean by that is, what's the reason they should care or choose us over anything or anyone else? The second is, how do we build or maintain our brand and our trust between our customers through this process? Because while we talk a lot about startups, even startups launch second products, and that means you already have a customer base. And so you cannot neglect them in the process. That's incredibly important. And I think we're going to talk about a little bit more about that in a moment. And so then the last one is really, what is the customer journey map that we're going to look for to incorporate this fully into everything we do, whether it's from the website to our content, to our internal processes and procedures, and to your exact point, billing, pricing, bundling. What does that look like? So from a leader's perspective, if you take anything from this episode, I'm going to say, write down those 3 questions. And anytime you have to go to your go-to-market meeting, make sure that you have a plan for these things, or at least that these things are being worked on. So marketing can help you answer all those things, or at least own sort of the project management aspect of a lot of those pieces and help assemble those answers. As part of all of that, marketing also is really a full realm of items that should be helped being produced. So in many campaign activities, which are usually the ones that are already in the market, you see the tangible evidence of marketing working. It's a beautiful billboard. It's a Google ad. It's a downloadable PDF that explains the value of us, the business, and thought leaders. But in go-to-market activities, they're often what the theater world would call stage managers. Mm-hmm. They're the people behind the scenes that often don't get enough credit for literally making sure everything happens. They're the people that stand behind the curtain and say, you need to be on stage. They're the ones that take that prop and put it back in the exact space it's supposed to be in, so that in the next act, someone doesn't have to fumble around and look for it. They're the people that are managing scripts and cues and helping make sure that everyone's on the same page. And so marketing kind of fulfills that function. So from that, they do the market research way in the beginning. They do the competitive analysis. They do the unique selling proposition, which is what I just mentioned, the unique value proposition. They identify differentiators. There's messaging, there's pricing strategies. I can't tell you how many times a product marketing manager, who usually is the title, the role behind owning a lot of this marketing strategy pieces for go-to-market, are left out of pricing conversations. And it makes sense from a we're doing things quick perspective, that it's forgotten about because they don't seem to potentially have the information. But if they know everything about the customer and everything about the competitor, that should include pricing. How do we put ourselves forward with this particular thing in a way where we are now competitive, or we are now offering something that people want to buy? There's also customer feedback and engagement, and so much more. So marketing, really dialing down, is a critical part of pre-planning and strategy, and really should be not the ultimate decision maker necessarily, but when a decision needs to happen, they should sort of be the encyclopedia you consult in order to make that informed decision.
Right. They're definitely in a driver's seat of this whole process, right? And I think they're also someone who, as we talked about in the previous episode, is kind of responsible for gathering all these things together and making sure that it becomes something truly beautiful. And I think in some companies, they're moving pieces of that role to other functions, but that product marketing manager who really is kind of intimately aware of that product is definitely the best person to be that central location. Something that you mentioned too was journey mapping for the customer. And there are so many cool tools on the market now for journey mapping. Maybe that's a whole nother episode. But I think it's so important to think through how all the steps you're taking impact the customer. And is it easy for them to upgrade to, is this a new feature entirely? Is it a new product completely? As you think through what that engagement is with the customer, and typically marketing is so close to the customer in terms of understanding how they're going to receive the product, what they're going to think about it. And so it's really key to kind of understand that journey and map it out. So what do customers actually need to know about go-to-market? Are they aware of it? Do they, are they sitting at home like, I wonder how they're going to market this to me? Like what?
I wish that they were sitting at home thinking about that. That would make me very happy. Listen, the truth is that in so many aspects of life, we are in a frame of mind where we ask, what's in it for me? And I don't mean that as a negative or as selfish. That's just how it is, right? Like if you're an employee of a company and they're merging, for example, you're immediately thinking about like, is my job secure? Am I okay here? Will this company be a good fit for me as they grow? You're not thinking like, how can I make this merger as successful as possible? And so that's the same thing for the customer. Like when all of these things launch, change, reorganize, whatever that looks like for your product and your features and your go-to-market, they really want to know what's in it for me. And sometimes that's as simple as, is anything going to change? Just that simple. Like, will I even notice? And so making sure that you have a fully thought out plan from all aspects of the customer experience is incredibly important as you consider your go-to-market strategy. And so we've talked about some of them. Some of them, yes, is marketing. And that could look like the colors you use inside your product. Because if they're used to seeing a red button and you're going to a purple button, then they're no longer going to visually identify so fast, right? Like you sort of get into muscle memory. Now it's something different. That's probably very minor depending on what those changes are, but like that could be something. So that's a brand element, or maybe that's a verbiage element. You're going to change the tab from folder to solutions. And now they have to look for a different word. It could be a billing thing. Now, instead of being billed monthly, they're going to be billed quarterly, but you're still going to show the money in a monthly quantity. There's so many different ways that your decision could impact the way that a customer experiences a product. I don't know if you remember a few years ago, maybe 6 years ago, Instagram wanted to launch a whole new interface where they capitalized more on this swiping left and right design rather than their scrolling up and down interface. And it basically broke the internet. like they didn't tell anyone. It wasn't really well publicized. They just started flipping over accounts and people hated it. And it literally, I think, lasted hours. I don't even think it lasted a full day. And I think it's a great example of you didn't fully consider your customer. Such an incredibly big, impactful thing. And you launched it without really doing the work. And so for your product launches, for your go-to-market strategies, I would recommend mapping out all the places that this change, whether it's, again, an added feature, a whole new product, what that looks like, every place that it touches a customer, website, in-app, phone calls, like whatever the things are, billing all the way through, and then make a plan for how large of a scale change that is. Low impact, medium impact, high impact, and then just start going straight down. If it's high impact, you need a full-fledged plan. If it's medium impact, maybe you just need to make sure that if they run into it, they have a help desk article. If it's low impact, it simply needs to be documented somewhere and shared with them. Maybe it's an email. And having a full strategy for how to communicate to the customer over what period of time, in what cadence, and then doubling down on that by making sure that sales is fully trained in not only where to find that documentation and information, but also how to handle those phone calls when they come in. Because I have yet to be part of one single go-to-market where something didn't go wrong enough that a customer called their sales rep and the sales rep had no answers. I mean, it's like, is it the sales problem? Is it the customer problem? Is it the marketing problem? But I don't know. But you know what? All those pieces should be in place. So I think that that's really what I look at when I'm thinking about go-to-market and the customer experience.
So this has been a very full, chock-full episode of Managed Chaos Podcast talking about go-to-market, our second episode. So if you haven't listened to the first one, go back and check that out. And I have a feeling we're probably going to be talking about more go-to-market soon. So tune in on all of our channels where you listen to your podcasts, and we will see you back soon.
This was another informative episode of Managed Chaos, the podcast for startups. You can find us on all of your favorite podcasting apps, as well as on Instagram and YouTube, where we are at Managed Chaos Podcast. For additional resources or to continue the conversation, you can find Katrina Purcell and Rachel Anderson on LinkedIn.